Hey everybody, this is Josh Runquist here for the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel, back with another edition of Out Today and What I Missed, this time for the final episode of February 2025, where we cover February 28th, 2025. This week, I got 8 brand new albums that are coming out today, and the rest are going to be everything that I've been catching up on, and this might be my favorite week that I've been covering so far, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, let's see where we're at. First up is Ayreon with The Light That Burns the Sky. Ayreon returns with their 4th album and it's easily their best work to date, bar none. Everything I loved about the band is here in full stride, but done on a grander scale. Of course, the band isn't doing the most thought-provoking or epic or technical stuff ever made. It's symphonic power metal. They're focusing on what works with making the fast parts fun, the chorus is catchy as all get-go, and those epic moments that truly stand out. If you've never checked out Ayreon before and you are a symphonic and or power metal fan, you are doing yourself a huge disservice by skipping out on this one. This is how you breathe life into power metal and symphonic metal in 2025. Next up, we have Blutengel with a name I'm so sorry for getting wrong, but I know I'm going to. Damanon Sturm. This is a brand new discovery for me, even though the band has put out 13 albums over the past 26 years. And wow, did I pick a huge album to start off with. This is a double album, or a triple album if you get to orchestral versions of some of the tracks, and this has been such a mammoth release to try to comprehend. Thankfully, the music is so good that these 25 tracks, or 30 if you get all 3, fly by like a breeze, and you'll want more. Combining the best of goth rock, pop, industrial, and just straight up everything that you'd be looking for in this particular genre, it feels like being in a goth club in the 90s with just enough modern influences, and the music refuses to stop. Nor should it. It should be an all-night party until the sun comes up. While I'm not up on my German at all, even though I'm part German, so I'm not entirely sure what's being sung here, but I do love the vocal melodies and harmonies and how they intertwine with the music. It's simple, danceable, and easy to make some gothic romance to. Sometimes that's all you really need. If that's your bag, you should really check this one out. Now we got Brainstorm with Plague of Rats, and Brainstorm is one of the most underappreciated power metal bands going today. Despite starting around the time that Helloween and Blind Guardian did, and then putting out their first album about 10 years later, the band has put out 14 albums since 1997, and Brainstorm has been putting out some of the most compelling and intriguing songs of their career on this very album, which is amazing to be able to say that after all of this time. Whether you want something that's full speed ahead, a little more subdued, or just takes you on an epic journey, they have it all covered here in strides. I love how the band finds a way to be able to improve on every album that they make in some capacity, and it should be required listening for any power metal fan. Albums like this give me hope in 2025 that it's going to be a great year for power metal. It's been a great year so far for it, but Brainstorm might have put out the best power metal album of the year. We're just going to have to wait and see. Up now we have Enemy Inside with Venom, and wouldn't you know what, this is another German band coming up here, but instead of power metal like I just got done talking about, this is very super catchy, pop-infused modern rock and metal. Like everything that's been going on with like the industrial, electronic, modern stuff that's been going on, mix that in with rock and metal and you have Enemy Inside. Every song is super catchy, yet they all have their own feeling behind it. Like no 2 songs sound the same on this one, yet it all feels familiar, and they instantly become earworms every time you listen to them, and they won't leave your head. It gets quite intense at times. I mean, there's some like heavy riffs going on here, especially for the style, but it's so layered in modern pop influences that I have to repeat myself the way that I do on so many albums like this that I discover. This should be on modern US rock radio, and if it's not, that is a complete and utter travesty. Quality music that anyone who enjoys rock or metal would be able to find something to love about this, so why not put it on there? And isn't that a great feeling when you can find something that everyone can enjoy and find something to appreciate about? That's Enemy Inside. Up now, we got Perfect Plan with Heart of a Lion. This is the band's 4th album, and it's pure, unadulterated Swedish AOR from start to finish, hitting that sweet spot between the late 70s to late 80s AOR sound that is just heavy enough, just poppy enough, the right guitar solos, the right kind of vocals, and it feels so motivational as well. Like, especially with an album title like Heart of a Lion, it makes you feel like that you can do anything that you want to achieve. And in 2025, we need that more than ever before, especially as authentic as they do it here. The production is perfect for the style. Everything from the vocal melodies and harmonies to the instrumentation is so on point here, and it hits all the right spots. AUR has been doing so good in the past several years, and I'm so happy that Perfect Plan is here to do it so, perfectly. Sorry about the pun. Up now we got Ramam Cowley with Soulbound, and this is a man I've had the pleasure of interviewing on a number of occasions, and I'm so glad to see that he is back with another fantastic solo album. This is everything that I want from Robin at this point. He doesn't need to reinvent the wheel whatsoever. He's just got to keep making some absolutely solid music from start to finish, and that's what this album is. It's that great authentic sound of that late 70s to 80s hard rock and melodic metal sound that he really showed his talented voice for, and I'm so glad that he's still doing that now. This feels like an album that was made in 1984 but updated just enough for 2025. His voice is holding up magnificently, and the rest of the band seems like they're playing with absolute ease, or at least they make it sound that way. This is just a fun album that shows once again that Robin is here for the long run and has no intention of stopping. And if he's making music this good, this late into his career, I can't wait to see what he does for albums and albums to come. Up now we got Serenity and Murder with Timeless Reverie, and this is an early contender for Album of the Year for me, and I know that's crazy to say at the end of February, but hear me out here. This is the Japanese band's 5th album and my first foray into the band, but it covers everything that I want to hear in this style. It's symphonic in just the right moments, it's blackened in the right moments, it's melodeath through and through, it's got these great J-pop, J-rock, J-metal moments that just make it some of the most catchy things that I've ever heard, and it has some of the most awe-inspiring moments I've heard on an album that when I heard it for the first time literally made my mouth agape and just my jaw hit the actual ground. It can get so catchy and so poppy without ever losing its heavy qualities. Just check out the song Matrix and prepare to be floored. The whole album is just as catchy as this song, but just done in different ways, and I can't sing the praises of this album enough. I will be flabbergasted if this is not in my top 10 of my top 100 albums of 2025, and at this point, I don't know what could possibly top it in 2025. If you like anything symphonic, blackened, melodeath, or J-rock, pop, metal, get this immediately. And finally, wrapping up all the new albums that I heard today, that are coming out today, is Year of the Cobra with their self-titled album. This is the band's 3rd album, and I can easily say it might be my favorite one that they've done. It's sludgy, it's doomy, it's got this great Alice in Chains meets occult rock kind of feel at times as well, and it's all drums, bass, and vocals. It is magnificent for the style, and it adds just the right amount of weight and oomph to the music. The sonic quality of this album is astounding for the genre, and especially the instrumentation, and the vocals are on point, and the musical chemistry that both people in the band have on display is phenomenal. If you can appreciate this style of music, the sludgy, doomy, occult rock, Alice in Chains kind of feel stuff, you may have found one of the best albums of the year with Year of the Cobra's self-titled album. Up now is all the albums that I missed, starting with Aether with The Serpent. This is a debut album from this Finnish outfit, and it took me by complete surprise, yet when I listened to it, it was everything that I wanted in this sound. This is another band featuring Toni Pananen of the band To Die For, who I just talked about last week as I was covering the latest Mastored album, and it's just great to see this diversity that he's been doing ever since he left To Die For. This is such an incredible display of progressive and post-metal melded together. The songs never get too wanky like they do in prog on occasion. As a lifelong prog fan, I can admit that happens, and yet the music never gets too ethereal or directionless like a lot of post-rock and post-metal can often do. It's that sweet spot in between where every moment matters, from the 10-minute epics to the couple-minute-long interludes. Everything has its piece, and it's melded together to create a dark atmosphere that is hard to really describe on paper. I mean, I kinda tried, but it just needs to be heard to fully appreciate. That is this album. It needs to be heard to get a better idea of what's going on. It's slow, it's brooding, and yet it hits all the right spots to make this such a compelling piece of progressive post-metal. Up now we have Amon Sethis with Part 3, Dawn of an Apocalyptic World. This is the band's 4th album. Even though it starts with Part 3 here, it's actually a conceptual story that's going on with this progressive metal band from France. They have Parts 1, Part 2, and Part 0, which came out before this, which is a prequel, and it makes Part 3 just a little bit more dramatic when you have the story behind it. I'm not going to give away what happens in it or what it's even about, but with a name like Amon Sethis and Dawn of Apocalyptic World, if you've never heard heard of them before, you might start to get an idea. If you enjoy bands like Mirath, you also might start to get an idea of what this is all about. Also, this is for people who enjoy Vadenplas and the John Arch era of Fate's Warning. Like, even though it doesn't hit those falsettos that Arch can do, this is a great conceptual album that is a treat for anyone here for the full story or just looking for some great prog metal. It's just modern enough, but it still feels like a good throwback at the same time. Put it on and just see what I mean. I think you'll understand. Though, if you want to know what's going on, I recommend starting with part 0 and going in numerical order, but I think you know what I'm getting at here. Up next, I have Christopher with the Bermuda Pentagram, and I wish I had more info to give you about this band. All I know is that I found it on my streaming platforms. I found it on YouTube. I found it on Spotify. It's the debut album from what I'm assuming is a Finnish outfit. I don't know who's a part of it. It could be a one-man project. It could be a full band. I have no idea. But all I know is this is some of the best crust punk meets black and roll that I've heard in a very, very long time. 11 tracks, almost 32 minutes. This thing is a full-on assault of crust punk and black and roll. It's made for the pit, and it's the perfect set length for a live show. You play this start to finish, and you're gonna get some absolutely violent pits going on. If you love this style of music, you are gonna love Christopher. I can't recommend this enough. Up now, I got Kulak with Wayfarer, and Kulak has had such an eclectic run as an artist so far. In 12 years, there's now a staggering 22 albums to Kulak's career, and now with Wayfarer, they're going in a little bit of a different direction here, a bit more of an instrumental approach. Not saying that there hasn't been instrumental work before, but this focuses much more on the post-black meets atmospheric black metal meets doom metal combined together, and it just gives this very ethereal feel between all of it. That's not to say there isn't any kind of vocals at all, as this does feature some choir melodies and harmonies that really match the tone of the music so very, very well. It makes for a very tear-jerking experience without using one word being uttered. It's a highly emotive album that makes you feel like you're floating in outer space and there's no hope of ever getting back home. Although, when you look at the titles of each track, it does seem like it's on some kind of planet, and it's meant to represent a different short story with every track, and that better go without saying that it should be a full story for each track, as every song is over 15 minutes long. If you're not in the epics, you're not going to enjoy this one, but for those that do, this is sure to be an album that you'll go back to time and time again. Every Kulak album is a little bit different in a different way, and it never loses sight of what Kulak has always been about. I can't wait to see what direction the next album is going to be going in, and given the track record, it's not going to be a long wait until we get that next release. Now we have Horizon Ignited with Tides. This Finnish band's previous release was one of my favorite albums of 2022, so in 2025, what are they up to now? Well, I have some thoughts on it. They have definitely updated their sound. It is not just a mix of the melodeath and kind of radio rock that I really loved about their previous album, Towards the Dying Lands. Don't get me wrong, most of the album is kind of this way, and those killer cleans are still here in moments, but a good chunk of this album, it's more of a kind of new metalcore-ish, Slipknot-ish sound that I definitely wasn't expecting. Especially when you check out the video for Welcome to This House of Hate. You can hear it in the music, and with the jumpsuits that they're wearing, you can definitely see where the Slipknot imagery is coming from. While this is not my favorite genre of heavy music, in fact, it's probably just one step above drone, they do a great job of exploring the sound while keeping my interest from all of it, from the beginning to the end. This is a diverse and intriguing album. I mean, when you get past the new metal Slipknot-ish stuff, it has everything that I loved about the band to begin with. I love that 90s melodeath sound that they have. I love the modern edge that they have to it as well. All of that is there, just a little bit more. I definitely think this is a grower of an album. Unless you dig all of these genres combined, then, well, this is tailor-made for you. But if you're a bit iffy on the melodeath side, if you're a bit iffy on the Slipknot side, you'll need to warm up to it, which is fine. You should explore more than what you just like, because there is good music in every genre, despite what you might think. I just think Horizon Ignited have put out a killer piece of music here, and I think they're only going to get bigger and better from here on out. Up next is a band and album that I hope I pronounce right, because this is very true and cult in how they spell this. Incantum with Maleficia. This is the sophomore album from this Italian band, and it's quite the trip. It's a soundtrack to what literally sounds like real witch hunting, and it continues on from their last release, although that was a bit more on the occult rock, almost black metal side of things, where this is like pure avant-garde black metal. And again, it's quite the trip. trip. At only 5 tracks and over 41 minutes long, it feels like you're hearing a series of short horror stories. The music is just bonkers in the right moments, captivating in others, and catches you completely off guard when it switches things up, almost kind of like if you're dealing with a witch. This is definitely not an album for the faint of heart. This is for those that want their music from the farthest realms of left of center. If that's for you, you will be entranced by Incantum. Up now we have Metal Lobos with Phantasmagoria Hexed Lands. 3 albums into this Mexican band's career, and they have me reeled in, hook, line, and sinker with my first foray into this band, and then going back and checking out their other work. Magnificent stuff. This is everything I love about Gothic Death Doom rolled into one. It sounds like Catatonia, Swallow the Sun, November's Doom, and Shape of Despair all rolled into one. The production is a bit raw, but it's called for in this style. The musicianship is incredible, and the songwriting is so inspired, and it's so captivating. I simply cannot get enough. This is how you breathe life into a genre that is always in need of a little bit of a shot of an arm once in a while, because, you know, sometimes it can start to sound similar. And this is a genre I love so much, so I do know what I'm talking about here. And I'm so happy that there's bands like this making the music like this and making me appreciate the genre that much more. This is easily gonna be one of, if not the best, Gothic Death Doom album of 2025. Up now we have Modari with The Outsider, and this is another one-man band that I've discovered that is doing some magnificent work here. Coming from Sweden, it is the perfect blend of black metal and melodeath to create this blackened melodeath sound that I wish more people would do. It hits those early 90s to early 2000s melodeath vibes that I love so much, with just the right kind of blackened overtones, especially in the vocals, but also that ethereal atmosphere as well. The best way I can go about it is that if you get kind of an idea of that, you need to hear more of it to see how it all comes together, as my words can only do so much. I'm kind of at a loss at how to do this a little more justice. It's everything that you love between the two genres done with the right kind of raw production style and a pure love for brutality. Give it a shot if you're intrigued by this at all, and I don't think that you'll be disappointed. Up now we have Pissgrave with Malignant Worthlessness. And no, the album title is not just how I feel about myself. It is the brand new album title from this Pennsylvania death metal band. It is the 3rd album from this band, and it's easily the most vicious and brutal album that they've done to date. They've pushed the boundaries of what death metal is all about. It's a rough listen, as the production feels like it's clipping all the time and it's set to full blast. But sometimes the style kind of calls for that. I mean, would you want to listen to an album from a band called Pissgrave that sounds perfect? Of course you wouldn't. It's a nasty sounding album that feels like it's rotting away as you're listening to it. If you want a less complicated version of bands like Tomb Mold and Blood Incantation, or if you just want a more brutal version of bands like Revenge and Blasphemy and Deicide, you need Pissgrave. It's not the cheeriest album in the world, but I'll be damned if this doesn't fit the mood of 2025 perfectly. Up next is Sacrum with Exceed into Chaos, and this is the definition of a dark album. A third of this album cover is someone about to off himself, and I'm gonna make sure that in the YouTube short version of that, I'm not gonna let it linger onto that part of the album cover for obvious reasons, so it may not be the best album cover or even album for someone kinda like myself that's been battling the urges to kinda do the same, especially today. As I'm recording this, has been one of those days, but I can't be helped but suckered in by how astounding the style of black metal is done by Sacrum. This is the 4th album from this Norwegian band, and it's another band I'm just discovering on this release. It is some of the catchiest yet coldest black metal I've heard in a long time. It's a grand mix of Sunder, Carpathian Forest, and 1349 all rolled into one, and it creates an album that is just filled with hatred of everything and everyone. For anyone that has a mind like mine, maybe don't necessarily go into this one if you're feeling kind of bad. For everyone else, if you dig the most chaotic side of black metal, mixed in with undeniably catchy riffs, check out Sacrum. Now we have Scarlet Semblance with Resolve, a debut album from the UK area, and this thing has piqued my interest greatly. It gets technical in the way of Silosis, it gets as catchy as bands like Spiritbox and Architects, yet it has this undeniably heavy groove and heavy moments like a band like Gojira. You mix all of that together and you have a great modern take on how metalcore can be greater than the sum of its whole. There are some moments that get quite proggy on here, moments that are made for radio rock, and other moments that are some of the most brutal that I've heard in metalcore this side of Converge. All of that combined leads to a listening experience I simply can't get enough of. It just gets better to me on every listen. It's such a great modern take, but it also kind of feels like the early days of second wave metalcore as well in just the right moments. If you want a refreshing take on metalcore, you need to give this album a proper listen. And finally, we have the band Shrike with The Divine and the Serpentine. And wouldn't you know it, this is another UK band hailing from England, and this is one of the most intriguing fusions of melodeath and metalcore that I may have ever heard in my entire life. In what feels like a blend of the Black Dahlia Murder, Revocation, and Sixth, this feels like it was tailor-made for my taste. For some of the catchiest choruses in the business, to some of the heaviest riffs, to some of the most brutal and technical stuff going on, all done with a crystal clear production style that the Black Dahlia Murder fans are going to love. This gets bonkers in the right moments, kind of reminded me of Sixth, and it shows off all three members of the band playing perfectly. You are going to want to keep your eye on this band, as I feel like they are just one song, one radio play, one recommendation away from exploding into the stratosphere. The music more than calls for it. Check this one out if this sounds intriguing to you at all. I have a feeling that this band is gonna be huge. It just needs the right momentum. And there you go, folks. Another 20 albums down for Out Today and What I Missed for February 28th, 2025. And for anyone keeping track, I've covered 110 albums this month alone, and I've covered 160 albums in 2025 so far. I am so tired. I am easily gonna shatter last year's record of 550 albums if the momentum just keeps going this way. You can even hear me kind of talking over my words, considering how tired I am, the state of mind I'm in, and everything else. So I'm going to put this to a close, but I just want to thank you so very much for checking this out. If you liked what you heard, if you didn't like what you heard, if you're intrigued by anything, please let me know in the comments down below. And of course, like, comment, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. If you missed out on anything, I'm going to be doing a big mega upload of all 110 album reviews that I've covered so far in February 2025. That'll be coming out on the 1st of March or tomorrow as you're checking this out. And yeah, until March 7th, 2025 for the next edition of Out Today and What I Missed, and 4 heavy debriefings. This is Josh Runquist saying, embrace the skillet.